cycle for life, and that's what I'm doing. I started to cycle, I must have been 5 years old, 6 years old, where my mother and my late auntie would give me cycling lessons, which started outside this gate, going in the direction of the junction with Love Lane. That's one bungalow that way, and 2 bungalows in the other direction on this straight pavement. My auntie and my mum would help me get confidence on a bike with stabilisers. So I had 2 big wheels and 2 small wheels. I was in the junior school, St Andrews, and I took the cycling proficiency test when I was 10 years old. And I remember becoming the lowest marks in the class, or the penultimate lowest marks in the class, but I still got about 90%, and we were given a badge, and this badge with no rust on it says National Cycling Proficiency, and I was a recipient of this badge at the age of 10 in 1965. So I was a fully fledged cyclist, and by the time I went to the King Alfred School, I qualified to cycle to school because I lived a mile away from school, or 0.9 actually. So I cycled to school, capes on in winter, and I think nothing of cycling to Weston-super-Mare and back with Michael Truman for an afternoon out, a round trip of about 19 miles, or cycling to Winscombe on my auntie's old bicycle to see one of my first girlfriends living 10 miles away. I'd never dream of that now. That was in about 1973 when Solitaire was in the charts. So I've always cycled because I was encouraged as a teenager. I remember being in the Bristol Police Cadets. I must have been 17 years, 10 months, nearly 18 years old. And the chief inspector said to me, "Michael, never be without a bicycle." And I had my bicycle brought up on the train to Liverpool when I lived up there. And I've had my bicycle in other parts of the country, such as in Andover when I was teaching there. So I've always had the bike. I never had a car until I was 33 years old, and I was always cycling everywhere. And this bike I bought along with the other one. These are both road race bikes, but this one has only got carbons on the forks. The rest of it is steel. So it was half the price of the other bike. But before I had this bike, I had a Claw Butler, which was a very good brand. I bought that one around 1977. So I had that bike in 1979 when I was the first person in Burnham-on-Sea to cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End, Dunkersbury Head in Scotland actually, east of John O'Groats, which makes it the geographically maximum longest points between northeast and southwest of the British Isles. Took me 9.5 days in March 1979, and I had panniers on the bag, on the back. But the trouble was, in those days when I was a pioneer of running and cycling and swimming, I had no one to consult, and the spokes kept snapping. That was because the luggage was too heavy for the type of bike. It was a zippy road racing Viscount bicycle. It was the first expensive bike that I'd purchased, but the Bianchi are my latest bikes. And when I'm in other countries such as the Netherlands and China, I've always been fascinated by how many thousands of people you see cycling and the hordes of bikes at railway stations. And I'm very disappointed in this country, not enough people cycle. Up this road where I live, I don't know who else cycles a bike. There's people my age who live here. They'll either walk the short distances or they'll go by car. But we're here in this country that many people use the car just for half a mile, 2 miles. It's the car. And that need not be the case. If I go to the other doctor's surgery 2 miles away, provided it's not throwing it down with rain, I always cycle there and back. And people say, "Oh, I saw you on your bike the other day, Michael." They never say to me, "I saw you in your car." So I'm a great advocate of cycling. It's great for the body, the heart and lungs, and I'm only cycling on average about 9-10 miles an hour, so the cycle computer tells me on this bike. So the difference with this bike and the other one, I had flat handlebars on this bike, which is more of a relaxed upright position, but the bike is very light and zippy, great for cycling around town, dressed like I'm dressed now. I remember once going down to Taunton on the train and just casually cycling 20 miles back to Burnham-on-Sea on this particular bike. And people really think it's a lovely colour and a lovely bicycle. Perhaps if I had more money coming in, I might upgrade the bikes, because they're 11 years old now, and now they come with disc brakes. But I have been cycling ever since I was 4, so I'm now 61 years older, and I'm still a great advocate of cycling. And we hear on the news, because of this COVID crisis, that people don't want in the future to be bunched up going to work in rush hour on trains and buses, and that more people might start cycling. But I'd be very, very surprised if the numbers held up who bought bikes, because bikes are being sold at a rapid rate at the moment. But when it's windy, cold, frosty, in winter, a lot of people are probably going to not cycle in that weather, and then when the warmer weather comes, they'll be back to used to using their car or public transport. Now, cycling, the machine is extremely efficient. If I have time off swimming, I'm going to suffer in the water with tired arms. But when you're on that bike, if you've had 6 months off, the bike's going to do a lot of work for you, and you're going to make the 12.5-mile circuit if you've not done it in 6 months, because the bike's going to carry you around. The rest is up to you, how fast you can cycle. And even when I go down to the supermarket, quarter of a mile away, I come home with shopping hanging off my wrists on each side, with one bag each side of the handlebars. The bike gets serviced every year down at Bicycle Chain in Taunton. The air pressure on both bikes is around 110 psi, and if you want to make pumping up a bicycle tyre an easy job, you need one of these stirrup pumps, and you've got a pressure gauge there, and it's the far easier way than the old way of doing this. So you need one of these pumps, and if you want to clean the chain, you can buy one of these stands, and you can put the rear bracket, which is here, on the hook and lift the wheel off the ground and turn the wheel and clean the cogs and wash the chain. So this is a very good piece of equipment. There are tiny lights on the bike, and there's the padlock. So I've got the bare minimum on this bike, and I'm hoping that more people, after the lockdown is lifted, that more people will be cycling to work and around town, not just getting in the car what a typical person uses for 1 or 2 mile runs. And I really am hoping that this video will encourage you to be a peddler. It's ciao for now from Michael Turner, wishing you many fit years on your bicycle.